Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWAS. Continuing on with NFL Week 2, NFC East battle here. Giants, Commanders, let's roll.
Welcome to the SWAS. The SWAS. SWAS. Hey, get the SWAS.
All right, like I said, Giants are on the road in Washington here. Commies are favored, -1.5. This one opened up at 2.5. Got bet down to 1.5. Total sitting at 44, 44.5, depending on your sports book. So let's go ahead and get into this one, and we'll start with some matchup history. It's been pretty one-sided. This division rivalry has been pretty one-sided here. Giants, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-3 in their last 11 against Washington, 9-2 against the spread. So if you've been betting the Giants blindly against Washington, you are up considerably because they've owned this team. And Daniel Bones Jones specifically owns this team. 5-1-1 career record against Washington. So this Commanders team fears Daniel Bones. Now, if they watch the game film against the Vikings last week, they'd probably have less to fear. Daniel Bones, 22 of 42, 186 yards through the air, no touchdowns, 2 picks. Was not his greatest showing at all. Also couldn't get it going on the ground. We know Daniel Jones, a guy who likes to run, just 6 carries for 15 yards rushing. He was sacked 5 times in the game. So yes, it was not Daniel Jones' greatest moment. As we know, Daniel Jones last year really struggled against the blitz, but that was with very limited action. He got hurt. And something I want to point out, and we'll actually get to it a little later, but Flores kind of stopped blitzing Daniel Jones there because he was beating it. In week 1, 38% blitz rate for the Vikings compared to 51.5 last season. So the blitz rate a little bit down for Minnesota, but it's definitely important to point out that the Commanders defense is most definitely not the Vikings defense. In fact, they're polar opposites. The Vikings had a top 10 defense last year and probably have a top 10 defense again, maybe even top 5. They might have even got better. This is an elite run defense, borderline top 10 pass defense last year. Washington was not that. They allowed 7.5 yards per pass attempt. That's 31st in the NFL, 32nd in pass defense EPA, 32nd in pass defense DVOA. This was the worst pass defense in the NFL, and it wasn't even close. Daniel Bones owns the Commies. A 101.1 career passer rating against Washington, 68.9% completions, 9 touchdowns to 1 interception. Now, we know we're not dealing with the same Washington defense. Ron Rivera is obviously gone. Dan Quinn is coaching the team now. Joe Witt Jr. is the defensive coordinator, and they came out blitzing. Baker Mayfield blitzed on 44% of his dropbacks. Problem is, it didn't work because he cooked them. 146.4 passer rating, 4 touchdowns, no interception, 9.6 yards per pass attempt for Baker is really nice looking. He completed 80% of his passes in that game. But Baker Mayfield is a guy we know to be pretty good against the blitz. At least he was last year. He was a top 10 quarterback across the board against the blitz. Daniel Jones wasn't. But again, Daniel Jones' numbers from last year are very limited because he got hurt. And like I said earlier, Daniel Jones wasn't really struggling with the blitz against the Vikings. He actually was way worse when they didn't blitz him. So, I mean, Daniel Jones' numbers from last year, I think, need to be taken with a grain of salt because it was such a small sample size. Also, like I said, the Vikings defense is not the Commanders defense. This was a top half of the NFL pass rush last year. This should be a top 10 pass rush this year. Washington, one of the worst in football. They were actually dead last in pressure rate last year, 25th in adjusted sack rate. And yeah, I do expect those numbers to go up with Dan Quinn, but there's no way they're going to jump 20 spots. This is still going to be a bad pass rush and a bad defense. So I expect Daniel Jones to play much better in this game against a team he historically owns. Now, will the run game be there for the Giants? Wasn't last week. 3.5 yards per carry, 21 carries, 73 yards. But again, this was not a great Giants rushing attack last year. 4.1 yards per carry as a team, which was 16th in the NFL, 31st in some advanced rushing metrics. Saquon Barkley is obviously gone. But again, I do want to point out, they were playing against the Vikings, who had one of the best run defenses in the NFL last year. Just 3.8 yards per carry allowed. That was 3rd in the NFL. This is a very good run defense. Washington is not. 4.5 yards per carry as a team last year, 25th in the NFL, 21st in run defense EPA, 16th in run defense DVOA. This was not a good defensive front last year. Look at the right side of this graphic, pretty awful across the board here. And yes, I'm aware that the left side of this graphic looks even worse, but like we talked about last week, this is a completely new Giants offensive line. They have 3 new pieces that they upgraded on. So this Giants offensive line should be much better this year. The Washington defensive front should be much better as well. I mean, this is a brand new unit here. 5 of the 7 starters in the Washington defensive front 7 are different. Frankie Luvo's in, Bobby Wagner's in, a couple of new pieces on the defensive line, new pieces in the secondary. I mean, everything about this Commanders defense is brand new, kind of like the Giants offensive line, which makes it tough to make a prediction. We can point at the fact that the Bucs were not able to run the ball on Washington last week. They threw all over them, but they were not able to run the ball. That being said, the Bucs couldn't run the ball on anybody last year. They averaged 3.6 yards per carry as a team. That was 30th in the NFL. This is one of the worst rushing attacks in the league last year. Rashad White against the Commanders, 15 carries, just 31 yards on the ground, 2.1 yards per carry. With the improved offensive line, I do expect the Giants to be able to run the football in this game, but after seeing what Washington's defense did to the Bucs as far as trying to run the ball, I'm not so sure about that. Now, one thing I am sure about, this is a prime spot for Malik Nabers to burst into the NFL. First of all, the Giants offense was much more successful in week 1 when they threw the ball to Malik Nabers. Look at their EPA per play. All the other plays minus 20.7. When they threw the ball to Malik Nabers, plus 4.1. So clearly they have something special in this kid, and they're up against the Washington Commanders defense, which, as we already pointed out, worst pass defense in the NFL last season. Yes, they have some new pieces, but Baker Mayfield just tore that secondary to shreds. Against the Bucs last week, they allowed 392 total yards. 7 of 8 opposing drives by the Bucs were scoring drives. So if you're a Giants fan and you're looking for a spot for Malik Nabers to have his first big game, this might be it against Washington right here. But now let's flip it over to the other side, and we'll talk about the Giants defense. Sam Darnold looked really good. 79.2% completions, 8.7 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, a pick, a 113 passer rating. Aaron Jones did whatever he wanted against the Giants defense, 94 rushing yards on just 14 carries, 6.7 yards per carry, and that shouldn't surprise us. The Giants' run defense was terrible last year. They allowed 4.7 yards per carry. That was 28th in the NFL. Advanced metrics have this run defense as one of the worst in the league last year. Now, one thing we do have to give the Giants defense last week, they were generating pressure. They pressured Sam Darnold on 42.3% of his dropbacks, 9.1% sack rate, and the reason that's significant is that's exactly what we saw Todd Bowles do to Jayden Daniels last week. They blitzed the hell out of him. Last season, the Bucs had a 40.1% blitz rate. That was the 3rd most in the NFL. They blitzed Jayden Daniels on 58.8% of his dropbacks. They came after this kid, and I mean, he responded by using his athleticism. I mean, he was pressured on 12 dropbacks last week. He was just 1 of 4 with 13 yards, sacked twice on those dropbacks. He scrambled and tried running the ball 6 times. Thing is, he was kind of successful at it. He had 16 carries, 88 yards rushing, 5.5 yards per carry, and 2 rushing touchdowns. And the Giants were awful at limiting athletic quarterbacks last year. They were actually 30th in yards per carry allowed to the quarterback position. They also led the league in rushing attempts allowed to opposing quarterbacks. So I expect Jayden Daniels to use his legs here for sure. As far as throwing the ball, I mean, if you look at his stat line, it doesn't look that bad. 17 of 24, 184 yards, 7.7 yards per attempt, 93.1 passer rating. It's not that bad looking, but if you watch the game, didn't really look to be much of a threat as far as throwing the ball downfield yet. Definitely doesn't look to be the type of quarterback that can exploit the weakest link of this Giants team, which is their secondary. Doesn't look to be that type of guy. I mean, at least not yet. A lot of checkdowns, a lot of underneath passes. The A-dot was really low for Jayden Daniels in week 1. So I like that for the Giants because, like I said, the secondary is the weakest part of their team. A quarterback that can throw the ball downfield, that can throw the ball to the sidelines, that's what can beat the Giants. I don't necessarily think Jayden Daniels is the type of quarterback right now in week 2 of his rookie year that can exploit the Giants secondary. So I actually like that for the Giants, which is why I bet them. I actually got the Giants at plus 2.5. I got it at plus 100. So I'm holding some value here as far as the line movement goes. But my bet last week, I had a pretty sizable bet on the Vikings last week. That was a bet on the Vikings. That wasn't so much a fade of the Giants. I think this Vikings team is very good. And Sam Darnold being the quarterback is making people think they're not a good team. If you take Sam Darnold off, that's a top 10, maybe a top 5 defense and a top 10 surrounding offense. It's a very good football team. So I think Sam Darnold being the quarterback is causing the Vikings to be an undervalued team. That's what my bet was on. That was not a fade of the Giants. I think the Giants are the much better team here. Keep in mind, this is a team that just won a playoff game the year before last, and their quarterback got hurt last year. Washington was one of the worst teams in the NFL last year. They've got a rookie playing quarterback. It doesn't even look like their coaching staff is comfortable letting him throw the ball downfield yet. So yeah, I'm definitely on the Giants, plus 2.5. I like this bet a lot. Giants up. If you want to see all the bets I currently have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on open bets. You'll see all my bets as well as everyone on the staff here. So head over to the website and sign up if you're interested. Also, when you sign up for Sauce Network Plus, it comes with access to the Discord, and you can participate in the weekly betting league. So head over to the website and sign up if you want in on that. Live shows, Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time up to kickoff, college football. NFL live stream is Sunday morning, 11 a.m. up to kickoff. If you're able to make it, would love to see you in the comments. Let's have ourselves a nice NFL week 2. Had a winning week 1. Hopefully that continues. Remember to bet responsibly, and I'll talk to you in the Discord.